Hey guys, welcome back to Evony with Genghis on server 68. So just a follow up to the large attack, the very rare event we saw where a 10 billion player got taken almost all the way down and he came back online just in the nick of time. Anyways, I have all the battle reports. One of the players was kind enough to send them over, and let's take a look at them and see what actually went down. So here is the first attack. And you can see he begins with 310 million troops on defense. And it is an archer attack. 1428% buff, extremely high. And you can see the defensive stats. They're not great for a 10 billion player, but they're not horrible. I guess they're pretty bad for a 10 billion player, but they're not horrible for an average player. And when you combine that with the power, it's all right. It's almost 900 range. It's over 1,000 siege. Horse HP is 726. Ground defense 704. Obviously, this was a surprise attack, so the player has no idea that it's coming. He didn't buff up. He probably doesn't have the right Monarch gear on. That sort of stuff. His debuffs. 714 debuff, so he debuffed the entire archer attack out of it. And really that's about it, right? And you can see Joseph Johnston, good troop, good general on the wall. Now let's look inside. And the first attack was a straight archer rally, and you can see all the people involved. And let's look at Mr. Lynch here. He's a former member of BVS. Just joined Nef probably about the same time that the other guy who's being attacked went to BVS. So they've both been there probably about a month, 6 weeks, something like that. And you could see Archer rallies. So it looks like Lynch was probably the last guy in. So that's why it's cut off with no layers. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that. But you can see generally mostly T12s and typical marches. You could see totally caught off guard because there's only one reinforcer. That is Mamba Dirk Hebrew Hammer. He is the lone all-star in that alliance. He obviously saw the rally and just scooted something over and sent a lot of ground troops. And you could see that his ground troops actually did a lot of killing, but took very little damage, and majority of the damage all goes towards the host city. Look at those T14s, entirely wiped out the T14 horses. And dead too. 1.6 million just dead. 1.5 million wounded. 2.6 million Holy Palace. And 13 horses, 1.3 million just killed. This is a devastating opening attack. So basically 1.5 million wounded, 4 million killed, and it was all good troops. So let's look at the next. And here's the next one. And they are coming in with a siege attack. Let's look at the buffs. And we don't have to look at the buffs all the time because it's going to be the same attacks over and over. So we have a 1276 siege attack, and pretty obviously it all gets debuffed, but regardless, doesn't matter. Looking at the host city, the defender, sub 500 horse siege HP and defense is in 600 range. That means they're probably going to die off pretty fast. And now let's look. And the siege attack, I believe it's mostly all, yes, it's a T11 siege attack. And just look right there, everybody's sending T11s. On defense, now you can see that the entire alliance is awake and is like, whoa, what is happening? And it looks like everybody is sending ground troops. So I'm not sure if they are aware that ground troops aren't good against siege, or if they just got thrown off because the previous one was archer. So they're like, hey, let's send in some ground. Because in a typical scenario on server wars, you're not going to run into someone who's willing to just throw gems into siege attacks. So I can understand how BVS could be thinking that let's, defend against archers. That's the most obvious attack. But 10 billion, you're going to have to take it down with siege. And Nef just don't give a crap. Nef, gems are not an issue to them, and they are the real deal. And let's look more at these reports and see what was damaged on the defensive side. And the 12 siege basically completely annihilated by the 11s. And there's still lots remaining everywhere. Just look at that. 15 million, almost 16 million T11 siege. This is, although it's not the best buffed up city, it has a lot of good troops. The layers are done pretty well. So this is the third attack, 8.2 billion, going down to 500 million, going down 500 million power now. And looking at the reinforcements on defense, they're hardly getting touched. So everything's going to the main city. And an actual reason for that is because the defender has the wrong type of reinforcements. So they're not even getting into action. So it's ground troops mostly, and they're all dying off. If the defenders were to have put in siege or mounted troops, which I get it, no one wants to do it. So this is another siege rally. No one wants to send in their horse to die because you need your horse to rally. And no one wants to send in their siege because siege costs gems. It's expensive to heal. And this T11 siege attack, you could see just devastating on the T11 siege. There are no more T12s, so the 11s are now starting to eat up the other sieges as they're free to do so. They started to take some out of the T14s as well. And we can look at the rains again, and it's all ground. It looks like nothing was changed. It's probably the exact same players and all ground troops again. And now he's down to 7.7, losing 400 million more. And this one is another siege attack and exact same thing. We don't have to look, well, let's look through just to see. I just want to see which defensive troops were killed off here. And all of the 11s are now killed off in that round, so that is big. And it's really freeing up those siege to kill other things. They started to attack the 14 archers, and more 14 siege have died. But it's still a very, very thick city. Still very well defended. And the rains, looks like they're not getting switched up at all. They are still all, there's some archers, but archers aren't going to do much against siege. In fact, they get targeted a lot. Okay, so this one is 7.3, and this is a big one. He just lost over 700 million power. And this one again is another siege, and it is T11s that they're sending. And let's look at the defense. Let's look how devastating this was. So Nef knows what they are doing. They obviously have very high level battlefields, and they get to experiment with this sort of stuff. And BVS just doesn't have these type of troops, so they probably don't run into this sort of stuff in battlefield. And you just don't expect it in regular server play either. Like I said, gems are expensive to heal, and kudos to Nef. They don't care. Nef is not here just to collect power. They are to actually use it and have fun in a war game. And you can see here now the 10s are dying off siege, and the 14 siege just lost almost half of them. So these 11 siege are no joke. There's a reason why people are attacking with them, and it's just the perfect power swap level of troop. That's why. And if we continue to look at the rains, it continues to be ground. So now we're down to 6.6 billion, and he just lost another 550 million. The reinforcements are still not losing many, so it costs nothing to reinforce the guy. Attacking, they are losing lots. Look at that, 6.5 million wounded troops out of 12.8 million reinforcements. 1.9 million of them died. But Neff knows exactly what they're doing. This is not an inexperienced team, as I've said. And if you just look at this guy, news troops, let's go all the way down to the bottom. And you're going to see this all the time. You're going to see, oh, so he's probably running out. He has 100, and so he sent 200,000 T1 ranged troops. And that is so that they're the ones that die off, because troops die based on percentages. And if we look at mini mags, he sent even more of them. He sent what looks like about 400,000 or 600,000, and they're all the ones that die. And then when you go up top, because as I said, it's all based on percentages, the top troops just get wounded, so you can heal those and get right back at it. And just looking at it, still all the same guys in there. And look at this one. This one is just devastating for the horses. So this was an archer rally, and if we look at the defender and the losses, the 12s here, 4 million, lost all his T12 horses, all his T13 remaining horses, 2.7 million of them. He doesn't have any T14 horses left, and basically just he's getting completely annihilated here. I'm sure at this point BVS is just accepting the inevitable. If they can't get a hold of this guy, they are going to have to spam that city. And as we saw in the previous video, everybody was just wrapped around that historic city, just ready to go after it. And now he lost 600 million off that 600. Not losing quite that many troops. Like if you look, this is only a 15, 16 million troop loss, but it's the power. All the good ones are dying. And this was a siege attack again. And let's take a look at it. Let's see what siege. What did they go up to the 13s yet? They're sticking with the T11 sieges. Probably a little cheaper to use in server play, because these guys are going through hundreds of thousands of gems with this. And the payoff was huge here. Look at the T14 siege. 3.7 million of them dead. Dead? Wow. Or no, that goes to troops sold. They're not dead. But that is going to be one expensive bill in the troops soul. And the 10s are getting decimated, lost about 25% of them. And then if you go all the way down here, oh wow, 10 million 33 siege and some other stuff. So here we have the second last attack, 4.6 billion, goes down to lost 700 million. This was another siege attack. And let's look at it. Really only have to see the defenders. Attackers, we just have to see what tier it is to analyze it. And once again, it's T11. And looking at the defense here, range troop, they are almost all done now. The T14s, he just lost another third of them. And all the siege are gone. The 5.3 million into troops sold. That is ridiculous. And yeah, just look at everything that has death numbers beside it is siege. So he is 21 million T1 siege dead, and then 1.7 million to troops soul. So basically everything he owns siege wise is out of the battle now. And then Neff is going to come in with an archer attack. So now they come in with archers, and it's a little ugly. They only get 300 million. So it kind of gives hope to the defender, but in fact, all they're doing here is trying to clear out the horses so that they could then just 2-tap, probably, possibly 3-tap, and this guy's done. And you could just send those within seconds. Just send them back to back and crush the guy. And looking at it, yeah, look at this. These T12 range troops from new player, 600,000 of them killed 11 million troops. Wow. And this guy, the top player, so he doesn't get quite as many kills here, but sometimes it's just random based on what order you join the rally. and but he's still got quite a few there. But that is just amazing. Look at that. 11 million kills from his T12s. How did the other guys fare with those? Curious to see that because that was very big. And Lynch, 1 million from his 11s killed, 1 million from his 12s. Yeah, these are just real nice attacks. And War, I know he just loves to beat up on BVS. He's been doing it for years, and just different names of alliances at certain times. So I know he liked that. And then on defense here, looking through, this was to target all the horses. And yeah, so although the power wasn't quite there that it took, it was all about the sheer number of horses they had to destroy. So if you just look going all the way down here, they had to clear them all out because the horse will just eat up the ground if they want to send a ground rally. And they can send ground to crush the remaining archers, and they could send horse to crush the remaining ground troops. And or some people like to just send archers because the theory is the defender will not have archer bonus range on the wall, and you will have it attacking, so your archers will attack one round early against their archers. But with this many ground, you wouldn't do that as the opening attack. And just looking at this though, so the power wasn't quite there of the drop, but they took 40 million troops off of him to bring it down to only 110 million. And yeah, this was a 2-tap away. He was about to get just zeroed. And then he got online and bubbled just in the nick of time. That was amazing timing. From what I heard was there was a bit of time that took place between these attacks. And basically Neff was they had to get stuff ready. Like they had to crush this guy, zero this guy, and at the same time be ready to fight for the historic city and spam it with BVS. So that took a little bit of coordination, and the guy got online. But if you look at this time, so this is 7:15 my time. And the first time here, 7:27. So this took place over an hour that this was going on, and the guy couldn't get online, or they couldn't get a hold of him. But yeah, so just wanted to give you guys a follow-up and show you all of these attacks because there is lots to learn from. And I would say actually the main lesson is if you have big balls like Neff and willing to pay the gem costs, anything is possible in the battles. This is Genghis, server 68. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and a special thanks to New Player for providing these reports.